Hello and welcome to Rajat TV watching discussion today with your host Rajat Kain. Now in this episode we'll discuss government's latest stimulus package as Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar, creation of jobs and also incentives to home buyers. The steps were part of government's move aimed at fueling a rebound in Indian economy. Now addressing a presser, Ms. Sitharaman said that Atmanirbhar Bharat Rozgar Yojana will create more jobs and the income tax relief for first-time home buyers will boost demand in the residential real estate, which will in turn add to the economy. Now let's listen to what the Union Finance Minister said.
Farmers are to be ensured adequate supply of fertilizers, and this increased supply of fertilizers we assess will benefit 140 million farmers, and therefore 65,000 crores is being given to ensure that the forthcoming Kharif will not suffer for want of fertilizer. Farmers should be ensured that they have done a splendid work during Kharif. Now forthcoming Rabi and after that the Kharif after that should be somewhere farmers should be ensured adequate supply of fertilizer is given. 65,000 crores for it. Now we announce, this ninth announcement is for another additional outlay of 10,000 crore. This will be part of the PM Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana. It can be used for Manrega, it can be used for Gram Sadak Yojana to ensure that the rural informal sector doesn't suffer for opportunities. So this money goes there. This will accelerate the rural economy. 900 crores for research and development as regards the COVID vaccine development which is happening. And this is being provided for the COVID Suraksha mission purely for R&D purposes. And please notice that this money goes to the Department of Biotechnology, not health. It goes to the Department of Biotechnology for research purposes. Now, automatically, the question arises, is this what is being provided for COVID vaccine? No, this is for provision towards research activity related to the vaccine. The actual cost of the vaccine or the logistics for the vaccine to be distributed to the country is a totally different matter.
Well, so holistic announcement by the government covering each and every sector from the agriculture to rural economy to infrastructure to even health. Now to discuss more on this and how this stimulus package will help the economy, we are joined with our eminent guests. Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, Editorial Director, Business Standard, and Mr. Jayant Dasgupta, former Secretary, Economic Advisory Council to Prime Minister of India. Well, many thanks to both of you for joining us. Let me start with you, Mr. Bhattacharya. At the outset, this latest announcement by Finance Minister, how will it infuse more life to the economy, sir?
Well, I think if you look at the various sectors that have been covered under this announcement, you will see that not just 1, 2, or 3, but as many as 8 or 9 sectors have been touched upon. You have touched upon jobs through the Employees Provident Fund scheme, and also by ensuring that more people can be hired, and the government will provide the subsidy for the EPFO provisions if you hire new employees or reinstate those who lost their jobs. That's one part of the organized sector jobs. But there's also, as the Finance Minister mentioned, there's something called the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana, where the rural jobs have been taken care of by providing 10,000 crore of extra outlay. After jobs comes, in my view, what is the package for the manufacturing sector, You have both the medium scale and small and micro industries, which were given a 3 lakh crore of package under the earlier scheme. Now that package is been extended till March 2021, partly because that the utilization of that the credit-linked scheme, credit-linked guarantee scheme was not fully used. Only 2 lakh crore of applications have come so far, and the provision was 3 lakh crore. So this has been extended. In addition, there was this KV Kamath committee which had looked at this area and identified 26 stress sector. So now the government has decided that the 3 lakh crore credit-linked guarantee scheme will also cover those 26 stress sectors. Then you also have the production-linked incentive scheme, which was announced a day earlier, but the finance minister also talked about, and that is purely aimed at the manufacturing sector. And then you have the housing and the realty sector, where some income tax relief by increasing the differential between the income tax circle rate and the agreement rate. There is a big package on the infrastructure sector, but probably the biggest package is being reserved for the Indian farmers. 140 million Indian farmers who use fertilizers will get an additional outlay of 65,000 crore. Now remember that the government's total allocation for fertilizer subsidy in the current year was only around 71,000 crore or so, but the government in the first 6 months only has already used up around 55. Very little is left now, around 16,000 crore money is left. So the government has actually replenished that subsidy reserve so that the Kharif, the next year, and the Rabi in the coming year, those fertilizer use can be met. And one important point that we should not lose sight of in this entire package is that the fiscal cost of all the schemes, I did some quick calculations, the fiscal cost of all the schemes will come to around 1.4 lakh crore, which is about 2.4% of, not 2.4%, is actually less than 1% of GDP. The earlier package, when we heard that in May, the total package was around 2.21 lakh crore. So this package, from the government point of view, is no less impactful, in the sense that if the earlier package cost the government around 2.2 lakh crore, this package, although in numbers, the volume that they are little, the amounts look smaller, but its impact on the government fisc will be relatively more at 1.4 lakh crore. So the government will have has used that leeway it had got, because probably the revenues were rising at a pace higher than what earlier estimated. So the government has used that opportunity to provide that an extra stimulus into the economy to revive demand and resolve some of the supply constraints.
Right. Mr. Bhattacharya, stay on. Mr. Jayant Dasgupta is also with us. Sir, given the global COVID-19 pandemic, it had impacted economies across the world and not just in our country. Now, how far do you see this stimulus, the latest stimulus, being really wanting for the Indian economy, and how far it will add up to the recovery of Indian economy, which has been hit by the pandemic?
The COVID pandemic hit the economy in two ways. One, there was a loss of production, and a great deal of people lost their jobs. Manufacturing industries had to shut down. So the entire supply chain, which was feeding into these manufacturing units, was hit. And then the migrant workers who were working there, as well as the regular workers, lost their jobs. So migrant workers had to go back also. And there has been a loss of income for a large number of people. As a consequence, there has been a very palpable contraction of the economy, because not only has manufacturing shrunk, but the incomes of people have also shrunk, leading to less expenditure. So this stimulus package 3.0 is aiming to overcome many of the handicaps which were caused or which the economy suffered from on account of the COVID pandemic. So one of the things is, of course, as Mr. Bhattacharya mentioned, about reviving employment, about putting more money in the hands of the people who are employed, whether in the informal sector or in the organized sector. For instance, if a new employee is engaged for a unit which has less than 50 employees, if new employees are employed, then there are large benefits by way of wage subsidy, EPFO, the entire contribution of the employee and the employer gets paid by the government for 2 years. And so this is intended to encourage people to engage more people, and the people who are getting engaged, they will have more disposable income in their hands to spend. So that is one thing. As far as the agriculture sector is concerned, the subsidy bill will help in raising productivity and in ameliorating the distress which the agriculture sector is facing on account of low prices. And of course, our production has also gone up considerably in terms of food grains. And so there are the attendant problems that the economy is facing, and that has been sought to be addressed through this package. The last point I wanted to make is that construction and infrastructure and housing, they form a very important part of the economy. And that has been sought to be addressed through 2-3 different schemes. One of them is that earnest money deposits for government schemes for construction and infrastructure spending. And you must recall that in the infrastructure pipeline, more than 110,000 crore has been set apart for spending. Now there, the earnest money deposit has been done away with. Right. And there would be a declaration only for bid security. The performance guarantee amount of 5% has been reduced to 3%. So this is aimed at giving a boost to construction and infrastructure spending. And as far as the housing sector is concerned, there have been incentives announced by way of income tax relief. Right. There has been an additional outlay of 18,000 crores under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and mainly at the urban sector. So that would also generate a lot of employment, and it would boost incomes and provide assets. And finally, home buyers have been given relief through the Income Tax Act, the first-time home buyers, up to a spending of 2 crores per unit. So all these will boost the construction, infrastructure, housing sector. Now, the last point I wanted to mention is that the Swarojgar Yojana, the people who are capable of setting up a business on their own and be self-employed, they were to be given benefits, and that scheme has also been extended. And lastly, in terms of the external outlook of the government, the IDEA scheme, the Indian Development and Economic Assistance Scheme, which is implemented through the Exim Bank for foreign governments or companies which are given credit to buy Indian products, Indian consultancy services, they have been given an additional outlay of 3,000 crores. So all told, I think the effort has been to address different sectors of the economy. And finally, 1.45 lakh crores, which was announced yesterday for 10 sectors, for advanced cell chemistry batteries, for highly efficient solar PV modules, for the auto component sector, textile sector, food processing, which is again going to help in preventing spoilage and in providing larger incomes to the farmers. So all these sectors, they have been provided with the production-linked incentive scheme, which will not only make us self-sufficient or be, poised to take us in that direction by bringing in capital investment, by making the industry adopt newer technology, by increasing production. And increasing production will mean that more people will be employed, not only in the manufacturing process, but in the downstream services sector as well. So, and exports will also get a boost. And finally, the level of imports will come down to a certain extent, which will help in providing a feedback loop to the manufacturing industry to invest more. So altogether, if you take a look at these various initiatives which have been taken or schemes which have been announced, you will find that it is a very comprehensive package. And the last but not the least point that has been mentioned, that needs to be mentioned, is that the economy is doing well. And in the third quarter, it is supposed to be doing to do much better than in the immediately preceding quarter of July to September. And in the calendar year 2021, there are indications that the economy may grow by more than 8%, of course, on a smaller base of 2020, which was hit badly by the COVID pandemic.
Well, that's true. Thanks, Mr. Jayant Dasgupta, for this elaborate explanation of the measures taken by the government in the stimulus package. To you, Mr. Bhattacharya, let me put that in perspective. There have been several incentives by the government. There has been production-linked incentives to take care of the manufacturing and other related sectors. Now, what are the components you see in this package so as to encourage the supply side of economy? We have seen the recovery of economy, which is on a good trajectory. What more do you see in this package that will further enhance our economy? Sir.
Well, I think it's an important question that you have raised. There are two clear areas where I see that this package is aiming at resolving the supply constraints in the economy. We all have talked about the demand side of the economy, but the economy probably is also suffering from supply constraints. There is a provision of providing extra equity to National Infrastructure Investment Fund, and that extra equity is around 6,000 crore. Now, this may appear to be a small amount, but remember that when there is 1 rupee of equity goes into for an infrastructure project, it actually can help get almost 4 rupees of extra debt, and with that debt, a 5 rupee worth of investment can be made. So in other words, if you are getting 6,000 crore of equity into an IIF, now that 6,000 crore equity can actually get you 30,000 crore of infrastructure investment, including the debt component. So therefore, this 6,000 crore of additional equity, which is going to come from the budget, which will contribute to the overall, the fiscal deficit, but it will actually help in addressing the supply constraints of the economy, because you will be able to generate more infrastructure investments, finance them with the use of 6,000 crore of equity and another 24,000 crore of debt. Now that's one area. The other area where the supply side constraints are being sought to be resolved is what Mr. Dasgupta referred to, which is the production-linked incentive.
Right.
Remember that the production-linked incentive is not a new concept. It was introduced a couple of years ago only for mobile phones and other pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical products. And the provision at that time was only 51,000 crore over a period of a couple of years, I think. Now, the scheme used to operate in a very interesting way, that if you make a certain investment in those areas, and if those investments lead to an additional increase in sales, then on that base of additional increase in sales, the producer will get a certain incentive, which for the mobile sector and the pharmaceutical sector was kept at between 4 and 6%. Now, clearly, the producer of pharmaceuticals and mobile manufacturing units actually took advantage of it, and the utilization levels has been very satisfactory. Now, the government has now extended this scheme, production-linked incentive, to 10 other sectors, which are sectors that will probably help India to operate in areas where they can potentially be a global supply chain center. In a sense, things like the air conditioners, things like the advanced chemistry cell batteries, electrical vehicle components, of course, food processing goods are there, automobile companies are there. Now what happens, how it operates is that if somebody performs through additional investment and additional sales, then you get that incentive.
Right.
In other words, that the incentives are not linked to promises, but the incentives are linked to performance. So therefore, if you can potentially spend 1.45 lakh crore over the next 5 years, which is roughly around 30,000 crore or so per year, then it has the potential of attracting more investment into in the economy, not only domestic investment, more importantly, foreign investment. And since many of those foreign investment will also be geared to meeting global demands, so there is a possibility of a win-win situation of the production-linked incentive scheme to creating India as a global value supply chain hotspot, and also create jobs, because remember that these are all in the manufacturing sector, and the manufacturing sector, the potential for creating jobs is relatively more than in any other sector. And we do need jobs in the manufacturing sector, and jobs have been very seriously affected after the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think in both these areas, there is this clear attempt at addressing the supply constraints of the economy. There is, of course, there is as I mentioned earlier, that the third area which is addressing the supply constraints is in the MSME as well as the stress sectors.
Right.
You will remember that the KV committee had identified 26 stress sectors, and now the government has said that the 3 lakh crore credit linked guarantee scheme will be made available to these 26 stress sectors also, and not just till March 2021, but for a period of 5 years. So companies, MSMEs, small companies, large companies, stressed companies can actually look forward to receiving this credit-linked guarantee supply scheme, not just till March 2021, which is just a few months away, but for another 4 years. So I think all told, these 3 steps of the credit-linked guarantee scheme, you have the production-linked incentive scheme, and the National Infrastructure Investment Fund equity infusion to the tune of 6,000 crore, leading to higher investment in infrastructure projects. My sense is that the supply side constraints will be addressed to a great degree. One has to see how these schemes are implemented, monitored, and made sure that they help in reviving the economic growth that this economy has the potential of.
Well, we'll stay on, Mr. Bhattacharya ji. Mr. Dasgupta, now strictly talking of the job sector, the creation of employment, Atmanirbhar Rozgar Yojana, where do you see this stimulus package taking in terms of the rural employment scenario, sir? Strictly about the rural employment scenario.
If you look at the small-scale sector in India or the overall industrial scenario, then you will find that more than 85% of the units, they are located in the rural areas or in small towns. and most of them, again, are providing self-employment. So this is a boost in that direction. And if you are, for instance, having a unit with up to 50 people, you engage 2 fresh employees, you get the benefit. If it is above 50 people that you already had, you engage 5 more people and you get the same benefit. And approximately, if the income or the salaries are up to 15,000 rupees per new employee, then the employee's provident fund contribution of the employee as well as the employer and the ESI contribution, both of these are going to be paid by the government for up to 2 years. Now that is a very, very large package of incentive which has been formulated, and it will encourage industries to engage more people to and to take the full benefit of this. Right, and you have to look at it also in conjunction with 2 other things. One is the 10,000 crores, which is the additional outlay, which can be utilized by the Manrega scheme and for other rural employment schemes. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana has got an additional infusion of 18,000 crores. That will also provide rural jobs. So all told, if you look at the various components of the action that has been outlined by the finance minister, you will find that there is a great thrust in creating employment and in sustaining livelihoods in the rural sector. And the last point is about the migrant labor. The Rozgar Yojana, which was flagged off in June by the Prime Minister, that is specially directed towards the migrant labor so that they can also find employment in their own original places of origin. And if they do not want to go back to the place where they came back from during the pandemic, they can find employment and they can again contribute to the economy.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Well, thanks a lot, Mr. Jayant Dasgupta and Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya ji, for joining us and elucidating on very important points of what exactly the government's latest stimulus package means and how far it will help in taking our economy to further heights. Well, thanks for watching discussion today on Rajya Sabha TV. Please keep watching Rajya Sabha TV for more national and international stories. Goodbye.